If you've ever gone in circles trying to dial a metal guitar tone, trust me, you're not alone. You spend hours turning knobs, moving mics, changing pedals, and by the end of it, your ears are cooked and you don't even know what sounds good anymore. Sound familiar? Yeah, I've been there. Now that ended for me a long time ago. For you guys, it ends today. Now I've dialed in hundreds of metal guitar tones in my career, and whether you're on a 5150, Rectifier, or an amp sim, dialing in a heavy, tight metal guitar tone comes down to 5 moves, in order. Now I'm using real amps and pedals for this tone, but since so many of you guys out there are using amp sims, I'm gonna show you how to do it on those as well. Enough talk, let's make some noise. All right guys, for context, the tone that I'm about to dial is not just a demo for YouTube. This is actually for a song that I was hired to engineer, produce, and mix. So what you're about to hear is going on the record. For this guitar tone, I'm reamping a DI. It's gonna go through a chain of overdrive pedals that I'm gonna shoot out. Then it's going into the Mesa triple rec, which is feeding the Mesa oversized cab. It's being mic'd by a Sennheiser E906 and an Audix D2. I like to blend mics, but let's see where we get with the first one. All right, let's get into our 5-step process here. The very first thing you do after you select your gear and you set up your mics is you're gonna set everything to neutral. So these knobs are all from a previous tone, so I'm gonna dial everything back to neutral. And as promised, I'm gonna go through every step on an amp sim. And by the way, what are you using to dial in your heavy guitar tones? Let me know your go-to setup in the comments below. So here I have Neural DSP's Archetype Nolly, and same deal, I'm just gonna make sure everything is set to neutral. Aside from the master and the output, we'll play with that later. So all my overdrive pedals are off, everything is set to neutral. Let's hit play and see what the E906 sounds like. So this brings us to step 2 in our process, and that is what I call manual EQ. The tone I just heard sounded a little dark, so before we touch any knobs, we're gonna just move mics to try and EQ this tone. The closer I get to the center of the speaker, the brighter the tone. As I get further away from the center, it'll get darker and darker. So let's go to the amp room and move the mic. All right, let's hit play and see how that sounds. All right, I think I'm happy with that as a starting point. Now this is way easier to do on an amp sim because I don't have to leave the room. I just got to drag this microphone around. Let's listen. All right, the next 2 steps are super important. It's gonna be the difference between a tight tone and a muddy tone, and that has to do with dialing your gain. Step 3 is to choose your overdrive pedal. If you put an overdrive pedal before your amp, it'll tighten up your low end, push your mids forward, and really get that tight, ripping tone that everybody's after. Essentially, you keep the gain low on the amp and then use the pedal to boost your signal. So we got a classic Ibanez TS9 Tube Screamer, we got a JHS 3 Series overdrive pedal, and we have the JHS Bonsai, which is essentially like 7 pedals in one. We have the volume set at neutral, we have the drive all the way down, and the tone is also neutral. So I'm gonna hit play, I'm gonna turn on and off all the different pedals, and we're gonna see which one works best for this tone. All right, to my ear, the JHS 3 Series is the winner. So now we're gonna dial the gain on the pedal and on the amp and find the sweet spot till we get that nice tight crunch that we want. Before we make these moves on the amp sim, one thing that you have to understand is that if you don't have a high quality DI going into your computer, None of this matters. Now, if you want to make sure that you're avoiding all the common mistakes that people make when they're recording guitar at home, I created a free guide for you guys. It's called the Axe Tracking Blueprint. You can get it for free. Link in the description. My gift to you. All right, let's lock in our gain here. First, let's engage our pedals, and we're going to shoot out the green pedal and the red pedal, or orange pedal, whatever the hell color that is. I think it's the red pedal. All right, now let's find the sweet spot between the gain on the pedals and the gain on the amp. I like that. Now, after all that, we finally get to step 5, which is turning the EQ knobs on your amplifier. Crazy, right? That's usually the first thing that people do when they're dialing a tone. For us, it's the last step. So let's dial the tone in on the amp and see what we get. All right, let's dial this tone in on the amp. Now, I have a little bonus step for you guys, but before we get to that, there's one thing that you need to keep in mind with all of this: the volume of the amplifier itself. This is going to absolutely affect your tone. When amps are pushed really hard, they're going to get a much different signal. Another thing to consider, whether you're using an amp sim or a real amp, is that if they have 2 stages of gain, like a master and an output, those 2 knobs are going to do 2 different things. It's going to vary depending on the equipment you're using, but most of the time, output is just the overall volume, while if you raise the master, it's going to add some compression and saturation. All right, we got a little bonus step here. This would be step 6. My preamp has EQ on it, which means I can control what frequencies the microphone is going to pick up. So I'm going to further carve this tone by dialing in the preamp EQ. Let's check that out. Before, after. Now, if you want to use this bonus step on the amp sim, you absolutely can. Usually there's some type of EQ that comes with the amp sim that's usually modeled after a piece of hardware from the producer's collection. In this case, it's Nolly. So let's engage this and further shape this tone. I like it. Now, one thing I want to make absolutely clear is that this is my 5-step process. If you have a different process, that's totally fine, as long as you actually have a process. If you're running yourself in circles every time you're trying to dial in a tone, I encourage you to give this a shot. And you could do this whether you're playing live, recording through your amp, or reamping. Now, obviously, there's a lot more to reamping than I covered in this video, and if you want to see what the step-by-step process looks like for reamping heavy guitars, watch this video next. I go through everything in great detail. Check it out. I'll see you there.